As we move further down Ye Great Street in the other direction, we go on past the Wood Mansion, which we will get to later. There's a little house that was also built around 1730, and it belonged to the Ewing family. Many homes here were either property of the Woods or the Ewings. Very popular names back then. The Ewing house is a small 3-story building right across the street from the Baptist church. A very nice, pleasant place. And it has a good feel about it. No bad feelings when you go in there. Nothing to sort of make you feel funny. It's a nice, pleasant house. Well, one night, the lady who lived there, it was a lady who lived by herself. In fact, we know who she was. She's a friend of ours. Still lives in Greenwich Township at the far end. She was in bed. She woke up about 1 o'clock in the morning, and she sort of felt a little funny, like somebody was looking at her. Well, if you're asleep in your bed 1 o'clock in the morning, there shouldn't be anybody looking at you, I hope. But there was. She had left the bedroom door open that evening, and out in the hall she had like a little night light, and she looked at the doorway. Right there in her doorway, standing there staring at her, was the figure of a little Quaker woman. She did nothing, she just stared at her. And then our friend stared back. First she had the inclination to put the blankets up over her head like a little child does. And I think she did, she just won't tell. But she half covered her face. Then she pulled the blanket down and realized whoever or whatever it was meant her no harm. And she sort of sat up in bed. And she looked again, she rubbed her eyes. And the Quaker woman was still there, didn't move forward, didn't move back. Just sat there looking at her, watching over her sleep. She rubbed her eyes again. She could not believe what she was seeing. She was scared to get up and turn a light switch on. You know, she was unnerved by the whole thing. I guess we would too, wouldn't we? To wake up and see that. While she was getting up the nerve to get out of bed and turn a light switch on, she turned sideways in her bed, rubbed her eyes again to make sure she wasn't dreaming. And she looked at the doorway. There was nobody there. Needless to say, she put the light on pretty quick. She went through the house. There was nobody in the house. And so that's where that gets left. No one else has ever said that they've seen anything in that house. Never had any experiences except this lady that we know. And there was no harm done. Nothing ill meant at her. Maybe just a lady who lived there years ago, came back to visit, or was looking over her. Who knows? But we move across the street almost. Right down the street near the railroad tracks on the other side, there's a house that's so notorious, even the Atlantic City Press newspaper did a big article featuring that house, talking about how in Greenwich most of the haunted houses are similar to the one with the Quaker lady. No one gets hurt, nothing happens. You just see something and you get the tar scared out of you. But at this house, it goes a step further. The newspaper did the article on how it's a wicked being in that house. Someone who is not friendly to people. Many people who have gone in that house always feel like somebody's looking at them. They feel like the temperature is cold in there. no matter how much you turn the heater up. I've been in there myself, and I felt very uncomfortable. But one day, about 15 to 17 years ago, my own daughter went there with her best friend, and they were going to do some schoolwork together at that house. Her mother was out grocery shopping. So they went to the house. They were sitting at one writing table or work table, and there was another one across the room, an antique one, something like you would find in a Gibbon house. And it had an old chair up against it, a ladder back chair. Well, they were sitting in this one table, doing their schoolwork, sitting in their chairs, and they heard a squeak on the floor, like something had moved. And they didn't know what it was. They looked around, saw nothing moved, and they heard it again. They looked again, but this time they saw what it was. It was the chair at the other writing table. The chair was sliding away from the desk. Very slowly, it would move a little bit and stop. Move a little more and stop. And the girls just thought maybe the heater came on or something, and they both giggled and laughed at each other and said, well, maybe this house is haunted after all. And then they went back to their work. When they got done laughing, they heard squeak again, and the chair was almost all the way out from the table. At that point, it was beginning to be not so funny. They were trying to keep their minds on their schoolwork and look at their work table, but out of the other side of their eye, they were looking over at the other desk. There was no more squeaking. The chair came out no more, and they felt pretty good. And then one of the girls laughed and said, well, maybe whatever it was, it went outdoors to play. And they started laughing. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, both girls, and they had their hairs in ponytails, both girls had somebody or something grab the ponytails on their heads and pulled them so far back they fell out of their chairs. Needless to say, the girls jumped up. They ran out of the house as fast as they could. And they went to the front yard. They waited there and waited there for the mother to come back. They refused to go into the house. And they were talking about what had happened. Was it our imagination? Was it my imagination? No, it happened to both of us at the same time. Someone's hand, one took hers, the right hand and the left hand, and pulled them right out of their chairs. Well, the mother eventually came home from grocery shopping. Both girls were in tears in the front of the house. And the mother grabbed them both and talked to them and found out what had happened. She had heard it was haunted in there, and she felt that she had experienced in her heart seeing things move and this and that, but she didn't ever want to scare her daughter and tell her. But at this point, this was too much. When it comes to physically harming somebody, that's when it's time you got to do something. And what most people do is they just get out of the house. After the mother got done with them, they moved. They moved across the country, in fact. Maybe not just for these reasons, but they did want to get out of the house. So whatever, folks, if you ever see a chair move, anything like that happen, a room gets ice cold, you smell a fragrance, you hear something, just don't laugh. Whatever you do, never laugh.